illegal and actionable to record you without your permission.
Okay, well, I mean, I'm ready to take action. So, I know you like suing people. I don't think I'd be out of that realm if I, did you wrong.
Yeah, we've been fighting with Google and Facebook and YouTube for like the last week because the German went on a tear and is just reporting all of our shit. So I got my mitts up, my mitts.
What does he like get? He goes in waves of causing problems?
I guess I know the how. I don't understand the why because we don't like him. We sued him. We sent the cops to his house. We did all these things and nothing did anything. And then I'm burning the candle at both ends. So we sued him and spent all this money to get evidence. And then we push back on Google and Facebook and all them and nobody does anything. And at this point in time, I should have, I've joked about it, but I was like, I should just gone to his house and like thrown him a beating or broken all his fingers or something really wretched because it's nothing gets done. Nobody cares.
I mean, I didn't think I would have to say this in person to you, but it sounds like you've watched too many movies as far as if any of those is going to solve the problem. That just creates more problems.
Right. But here's where it gets interesting. So there's this thing called Section 230. I've mentioned it before of the Communications Decency Act.
Yeah.
And it says that none of these social media companies have any liability for any of the stuff that happens.
Yeah.
But recently, of course, this is in California, there was a judge that said that because there was a lawsuit against Snapchat, that people were dealing drugs on Snapchat, some youngsters bought some drugs, and then they died from the drugs.
Yeah.
And that because the messages disappear on Snap, that Section 230 doesn't apply. And I was like, oh, so it's on. So with that case law in mind, I've asked Matt, our attorney in New York, he's going to recommend me somebody who wants to basically fight God because it's really hard to, go at these companies. They have so much money.
I mean, did you just imply that because Snapchat can't be held liable that you're allowed to kill people?
Kind of. I mean, it's fucked up, but it cuts both ways. So Section 230 is largely responsible for the growth of the internet. It's allowed these companies to bloom and allowed money to be made and technology to develop, and it's a good thing. But then once in a while, even when there are rules, because it's not totally lawless, it's just like there are rules that are eventually able to be gamed. So it started like this. Section 230 is in place, and then they set up rules for DMCA takedowns. That's a copyright thing. And then a community guidelines thing like nudity or jihad content or shit like that. And even with those rules, there are people who like to game the rules. So we didn't know anything about reporting content maliciously until a certain Canadian, whose name I can't mention, that was one of the first models in the business. You know who I'm talking about.
Yeah, but you're talking about organizing a group of people to report content, even though it doesn't go against the guidelines to take it down because of the quantity of people that have reported it.
That's right. It's called brigading. Exact process is called brigading.
Yeah, and that behavior was, there was nothing illegal about that, and now there is?
There was nothing illegal really about anything that these companies were up to, that they were either policing or that they were doing. There is a process to adjudicate, copyright content, like illegal use or improper use, let's say, of copyright content. But the way that they do community standards, it's silly. So there are all these rules that say you can't post nudity on things like, YouTube, for example.
Yeah.
But if one person, you don't even need a whole bunch of people, if one person reports content using a bunch of fake profiles, then it catches the attention of the moderators of community guidelines. Most of these people work in like India or Ukraine, and they get paid like nothing. And they've already tried to sue the companies because they're like traumatized from looking at like child porn and jihad content all day. Yeah.
For 8 hours at a time.
Yeah.
We need you to moderate all the things that aren't allowed on here. And now that's all that they watch. And you'd be surprised. It has an effect on your psyche.
I mean, yeah, I'm sure it's fucking terrible, man.
Yeah, I mean, that doesn't surprise me at all. But to be fair, let's go easy on the Snapchat. Back in the day, I used to get a lot of drugs from Snapchat. It disappears immediately.
Oh, yeah. No, I'm all about the drugs. I love it. And here's where it gets tricky. There are certain things that come with like a real name policy and a perjury attestation, meaning that if I report that somebody else used my copyright content, that I say this is my real name, I certify under penalty of perjury that I'm not lying, and that I submit the copyright complaint.
Yeah.
When it comes to community guidelines, it doesn't even take your name. It's just like you hit the flag and it's like, okay, we'll look into it. Well, the Canadian person that I'm talking about was the first person who ever said, oh, I hate that bitch, go report her content. And And then it was her social media post on Instagram stories that got the attention of the German back in April of 2020. And as soon as he knew that that's what, the pretty Canadian wanted in order to get his attention, lo and behold, he was all over that mess.
Oh, this is white knight energy, because that goes on forever. That's relentless energy. The incel white knight energy. Oh, there's no keeping that. That's as brutal as the gal who wants to destroy you because you hurt her. That goes to the end.
I tend to agree, and here we are years later, and we've adjudicated most of the disputes, like because of what we learned from this Canadian person, how we had to deal with Bree. That kind of informed how we had to deal with her, because the first Canadian person that caused this drama, we took her at face value when all she really wanted was money from me for free.
Yeah.
Well, of course, your feelings are hurt, and the proportion of your feelings being hurt is directly related to how much money I'm willing to give you. How that works.
Yeah, when the dollars and feelings find the perfect Vesica Pisces of dollars and feelings, and then everything is evened out and deleted. You're like, oh, him, he's all right. I'm like, found the dollar amount. Oh my God.
Exactly. So, we learned, and we didn't take her that seriously after a while, and it'll probably go away eventually. But the German guy, he's got nothing. It's called a Hartzer. He's been unemployed for like 15 years. He gets paid by the government, and he's just like, oh, today I will ruin someone's day. And when it flamed up recently in the last week that he hit us on Instagram, on YouTube, and on Facebook, and I'm just like, it's like whack-a-mole. You just keep going and going and going. I'm like, I just wish he would die. I wish he would be carried off by a twister or something.
Carried off by a twister. Yeah, but imagine the story that could be written about the white knight that finally gets the girl. Like, she who shall not be named. She's like, oh, I found out this creepy little German fella's been doing a lot of work for me. I'm starting to feel some kind of way about it. That would give a lot of hope to a lot of hopeless. Maybe there's something in there.
Yeah, I mean, we know what he looks like. I mean, it's adorable, and I would actually, that's kind of like a Shrek versus King, whatever the mug kind of story. Like, down with this King, Shrek, he's the real heartthrob. Yeah, like, because he's kind of like a big, kind of soft man. He's kind of ginger looking. He has like a ginger cat, and he used to be in the military, but now he's not. And very clearly his only purpose in life is to expose and destroy me. I was like, well, you old fool, I'll gladly expose myself anytime. And I'm pretty self-destructive. So any work you think you will do, I'll probably take care of on my own.
Dude, that makes me think of Beauty and the Beast. This like gal falling in love with this horrible monster when Gaston, dude, cleft in his chin, fucking spits like a maniac, drinks beers like a superhero, and then eats 5 dozen eggs. He could rally the whole town with pitchforks like in minutes. The guy was a superhuman, and like, I don't know, this 8-foot tall monster covered in hair, that's my guy. Like, come on, Gaston was on point.
I mean, it's great. That's an excellent analogy. And I think I always thought that the guy had watched too many like superhero movies, but realistically, he probably just watched too many Disney movies.
Yeah, dude. I mean, Gaston is the underdog hero of all times, man. That guy, protein-rich diet. I mean, yeah, real big Adam's apple. There's probably something there. Do you see the forearms on him? And he used to like punch on that little fellow, and so you knew he was quite masculine. Gaston.
Yeah. So what was the story of Beowulf? This is one of the great revisionist history stories. Do you know what Beowulf is?
Tentative grasp.
Doesn't matter. It's an old English story about a knight that beat a monster, and the monster is called Grendel, and Beowulf.
Yeah.
Okay, great. So then somebody did a revisionist history of the story from the perspective of the monster of Grendel. And I guess that's kind of what I'm asking for. I was like, would you please just consider Grendel? Consider Gaston.
The beast like stole this poor girl, hustled her off to a castle, and Gaston's like, fuck me, I gotta do what I gotta do, right? There's a beast up there. And how does he get the cold shoulder man? Hero energy. Where's the spin-off for my Gaston? Just biceps to spare. Have you seen he's got biceps to spare?
So I mean, it's kind of the point, and I mean, we're living in a time, and this is where it gets dicey. We're living in a time in which we're like enshrining Hamas and other terrorists as like heroes. And I'm like, I kind of like Israel. You know, they're smart and they're building shit and they love, you know, to go after things. They have a go get 'em attitude. But no, because they're you know, smiting so many civilians and doing all these terrible things. Now the American left is pouring their heart out for, you know, poor Hamas. I was like, I'm still kind of down with Israel. I'm sorry for being a jerk. What am I going to say?
Gays for Hamas. Gays for Hamas. I don't know if that allegiance is as tight as you think it is. I don't know if they're going to be too keen on your support.
You're right on the money, and that's kind of the whole argument for what we call the regressive left, that it's mostly liberals that are kind of excusing this Islamic craziness. And if you put them all in a room, they would just assume like tar and feather and stone and whatever else they're known for, their Sharia law is known for doing.
Yeah, and then with their dying last wish, they'll say, "I'm proud of you for living your truth." And then they fade away amongst a pile of boiling tar. I'm sorry that your truth comes at the cost of my life, but at least you got your truth.
Yeah, I used to say, I would get into it with people. I mean, you and I have known this for years. I'm a known kind of rambunctious person. I like to talk truth to power and talk shit in general. And if I see something that doesn't like jive with like objective reality, I'm known to just like get in its face. The old line I used to use all the time is, you can't let the inmates run the asylum.
Oh, yeah.
But if we look at what we're talking about here, the whole thing, it kind of lines up both with and then also diametrically opposed, you know, known mythos that we're kind of into, including Beauty versus Beast and all these other things. So I don't know who's necessarily right or whatever, but I definitely intend to tell the story of how it all happened. And so what I've learned is that not only will I fight back, and in the past, and not so much these days, but in the past, it's been like going to court and sending shitty letters. But I'll also, this is like, and you'll appreciate this. This is the absolute go-to for the Big Z. I will write the shittiest, most like below the belt, gnarliest story that you could ever hope to read, with evidence like photos and videos, and post it on the internet forever. And I mean, I've gotten into disputes with people that I really like, with people that I absolutely hate. And, you know, I found that is kind of powerful. Whereas any of the people I've gotten into a beef with, for example, Brianna, who's also just kind of a small blonde Canadian monster, that I feel free saying her name because I know she's a criminal. I was like, oh, you don't care that I'll write anything? Well, I'm going to write mine. I was like, oh, okay. Did you write yours? No, you didn't. Oh, okay. Well, then I'm just going to leave mine on the internet forever, and you can continue to spout empty words.
Yeah. You could always rely on the not follow through ability of the modern human.
I'm kind of all about that. And as a person who, I mean, I'm certainly not perfect. I put my foot in my mouth about every other word, which is kind of why we're here. This is the forum of foot and mouth.
The foot and mouth forum. All right. On that note, so I don't feel strongly drawn to anything AI related, but knowing that there are people deep in that world, I had a conversation with a gal a few days ago who does AI sex chat bot call center thing, where she pumped her voice into an AI experience where then she's taken it upon, given that it's going to be like foot fetish stuff, to finally bridge the gap of how AI struggles with hands and feet, where like there's always this like handsy thing where there's too many fingers and the arm is too long, and like we all have our crosses to bear. And for hers, she's taken on that, well, if I'm going to do foot fetish porn, then I really need to make sure that AI gets a good feet going. And I'm like, maybe, but if there's 8 toes on that foot, maybe you've got something that's even better. And there's like 8 toes on a feet, toes coming out of toes, and all of a sudden tentacle porn has a new place to roost. And so, I mean, I don't know if that landed, but just knowing that people are doing that is wild. But then maybe you just lean into the 10-toed foot. I don't know. Foot and mouth, another foot and mouth for them in a different way.
So I love that. That's great. And, you know, I think that there are things that world does really well, and obviously some things that it doesn't. We had a guy who was trying to buy all our websites and was trying to stick our content into their AI engine. And based on the fact that the broker who was trying to make the deal didn't mention that they were an AI company up until like the last possible minute, and then I backed out of the deal. I was like, oh, So let me think about how this is going to go. You're going to take all of our content creators who, our content, we call them models, but it's kind of softcore content. And, this is how we get really pretty girls to kind of work with Sure Thing, because the content's really not that risque. Sometimes the girls will get naked, but only if they really want to. And mostly it's just like, hey, get a look at this kind of dressed person who's really hot and really popular on social media. And, for a few dollars more, you can see them with a few less clothes on. But in this deal, because they were AI and they're looking to make money, they wanted to not only take our content, stick it in their AI generating engine, and then pop out new content that they would post. So I was like, oh, you don't want to tell us anything about your company. You refuse to do a demo of your product. So in my mind, you're finding the nicest possible girl with the most followers, running her content, which is pretty tame, through your engine. And on the other side, it's like 5 black guys all gangbanging at the exact same time. And it's like Lauren Birch is being gangbanged by Big Black Hawk. And this is the content that you're going to put out. She's the nicest person. They're vegans. They're homeschooled. They're intelligent. They're passionate. They're not obnoxious. They're really sweet. And they're covered in black jizz. I was like, oh, great. Yeah. And you want to give me how much for it? I was like, there's the door. Kindly fuck off. I'm not making that deal. No way, no how.
Man, it's a strange new world, sir. Strange new world.
That it is. And from what I understand, these AI companies aren't making a whole hell of a lot of money. So I thought that was kind of not the greatest idea. Call me old-fashioned. Call me a prude. Oops. But I don't think that's necessarily the greatest idea. So what I did was, after I talked to one of these companies that's non-horrible. And so we're kind of trying a thing with a French company who wants to do like a chat bot. And because I like the French guy already, he's like, well, we can train the chat bot in the girl's voice, but it's just chatting. It's all softcore. And then we train the AI to say no to certain requests. I was like, oh, you mean like a real girl where she's kind of a bitch for no reason? I was like, that's $1 million idea, friend. I think you should go for it.
Yeah. For what it's worth, I don't think anyone would call you a prude or old-fashioned.
Thank you. Great. Let's I'll send a note to Lauren Bird saying that I prevented her AI likeness from being slathered in the scene with multiple gentlemen.
Oh my God, being penetrated by the most tentacles that there has ever been on the internet. Oh man, you kept her off of maxtentacle.com. Oh my God, penetrated by every animal you could ever imagine, like one of those cat penises that go, or duck penises that goes 8 kinds of ways. Dang, you're a savior yourself.
I mean, I just really didn't want to get sued any more than, that we've had legal problems in the past. I don't know. I think it's kind of bad. And it's like once a year, there'll be a new AI platform where like for example, at the end of last year, it was the AI yearbook where the girls will see other girls doing it. And girls are notorious for this. When they see somebody else doing it, like, I'm going to do that. And it's just part of the female psychology. And so the next thing you know, these trends just sweep the world. Before that, it was the year before, and it was Lensa AI. Yeah. And I looked at their money, and in December of 2022, Lensa AI made something like $10 million in 1 month. So it works once in a while, but kind of in like a novelty sort of way, like in that neat. And gone pretty much in a week or so.
The one and done. And that's the only time that I have done it, that I saw what people are doing with both of those things. And I threw some pictures into that. And I actually found it really fascinating, because you don't realize how much you paint your human existence into this particular box. And then you plug it into this thing, and it's like, oh, have you ever seen yourself represented this way? And it was very peculiar to see myself represented in all these ways that I would never consider, because I consider those ways outside of what I prefer and understand. And to look at something that looks 99% like you being represented totally differently, it was a feeling I've never felt before. To see myself, because it was a little weird with the face, but to see myself in a way that I never imagined, I was like, oh, new like possibilities within my head arose that I never even considered. It was really fascinating.
So like what, you would try like a different career as like
No, I wouldn't say anything actionable came out of it. It's just that future projections of self are only within the paradigm of what you already imagine possible for yourself. And then you see this version of yourself, and you're like, even though it's fake, you're like, look at me go, I could have been a king.
Okay, so when you say actionable, I agree with you, and there's enough. I mean, we all know what the uncanny valley is, and so when you see like a humanoid robot or the likeness
Yeah.
of yourself, and for example, I did the Lensa thing to everybody in the company, and just because I kind of got on a tear, I sent one to Alex Feldman, the ex-wife, and she's like, I don't know, it's weird, and I was like, well, you're hypercritical of everything. That's just like her attitude. She's a very critical eye, and it didn't kind of pass muster with that uncanny valley. But
Yeah.
there are things that I think could be useful and actionable, like glasses. Like if you've ever wanted to buy glasses, it's really hard to pick out glasses.
Yeah.
You don't really know what they look like until you're on your face and wearing them. And it's not just how you look, but how people respond.
Yeah.
And so if I wanted to buy glasses and like Ray-Ban had eyewear, and I would say, well, throw my choices into this eyewear and spit back out some of this mess. And if as long as they're not ladies' frames, maybe I'll actually look great. I don't know, or look different in a way that it's useful.
Yeah, but it's also going to throw some sort of look on your face where you're just like, and you got this whole new like, oh my God, I didn't realize how goddamn sexy I could be with those glasses. Thank you. Dang, I've never thrown that look around before, but if I put on those glasses and looked at people like that, imagine where this could go.
So the other idea would be you could take it to the barber shop, and if you've seen like what was that line from a Beatles song where inside the barber shop is the head of every person he's ever cut. So like they always have these examples, right? And they're so dated. Like you'll see this like crazy pompadour thing, like you're like a greaser from the 50s or early 60s, and you're like, oh, I'll have the greaser, please, thank you. Maybe I don't necessarily want the greaser, but I want to consider the greaser.
Yeah, there was only 6 options.
Interesting as a greaser.
I mean, for what it's worth, both of those problems are already solved, even pre-AI, that you could just take a picture of your face as is, no sort of feeding it into a digital machine, and they take these glasses and they're like, look at you. And like for the haircut thing, I take a picture of myself on haircut day, and then I go in there and I go, make me like this thing I used to be. Thank you. Yeah. And for what it's worth, like men-specific barber shops, although I don't go to them, have come up in such a way that, like, yes, there are still places like a Supercuts that have the greaser and pompadour look of 1969 in it, or that was more of a 50s thing. Nonetheless, they are past that. That, like, just if you go into one that has that, maybe find a new place. But worse than that, the new version where every line is shaved in such a way where you look like a strange cartoon character, and your beard is just anointed with oils and all of that. It's gone too far. I get a once a year haircut in Sonoma by this little like half googly eyed kind of slow gal. I'm like, can you make me like this guy last year? And she's like, okay. And it's not too complex.
I mean, it is and it isn't. I always find it to be a unique challenge. I kind of take a little bit of pride in the fact that I've gotten my hair cut in I think it's like 5 or 6 other countries. So here in Mexico, it's really not a big deal. I speak a little Spanish, and I could even bullshit about like sports or whatever. But like when I was with this Israeli chick in Prague, I got my hair cut in Czech Republic, and I don't speak any Czech, like get out of here. I also did it in Japan, where it was kind of the photo on the wall was like, make me one of these. And I speak no Japanese. I can say arigato, and that's it. That's all I got. So I think there is a little bit of an effort that has to be put into it. If you can navigate that particular thing, I guess it's really just you point to the picture. I'm probably giving myself credit that I don't really deserve. I should have just pointed at the picture, like you said, in any language. It doesn't really matter.
Well, for 4 decades of being alive, 3 decades of which was not being having my hair cut by the orange-handled scissors out of the junk drawer by mother, for 3 decades of getting it done myself or getting it done by the cheapest possible person, never once have I gotten a haircut where I'm like, this is going to be a fucking problem. Oh, no. Never once have I had that experience. If it wasn't ideal, you throw a goddamn hat on, 2 weeks later, hair does what hair does, and you're like, look, it all just kept on growing, and now that's fine. Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying that is right. That's just I don't care. I don't care about it. So for those that do, there's boundless opportunity to point at the weirdly faded, just the perfect amount of tapering from the beard to the thing. That's available. I don't care.
Yeah, but see, that's kind of the point. I think for a lot of guys, they need the haircut. I feel the same way. When it gets, see, I have kind of a real thick head of hair. We both kind of have that, where it's real thick. And if I let it go too long, I get like a fro. And so like if my little like Jufro gets out of line, I feel a little ridiculous. But it's just, you have to tame the fro. And then as soon as I get a haircut, people are like, okay, you look nice. And that's that. I mean, there are people out there where their whole do I look good is teetering on the balance between Gargoyle and Gaston, whereby if they don't do the haircut right, they slide right into Gargoyle.
All right. You've got a point where maybe I've got a nice face shape that lends itself to any kind of mop that's on top of my head is going to be just fine. But yeah, I've never had a point at which where I'm like, oh no, I'm compromised as a human being because of what grows out of the top of my head. I have not had that experience. Well, even when it's long, people are like, oh, what kind of a product do you put in there to make it so curly and blonde? I'm like, well, I buy the conditioner that costs $2.49. Maybe get me a mane and tail, and then I get out of the shower, and you know what I do? I go, and then I walk out of the shower. Like, that's it. That's the amount of effort I'm willing to put in. I don't need any salves or balms or pomades. I just I just head out there. I don't need no anointing necessary. I just go about it because I don't think about it. But you're right. There are people, especially like going bald in your 20s. Like, you gotta figure something out. And I get it. And maybe I'm not being sensitive to the needs of the weird-haired.
I mean, it's not just that. Like, there was this guy, I don't want to say his last name. Yeah, I think he's like a still alive person, but like this guy Devin, when we were in high school, and we used to call him Jesus, and Devin could grow this whole ass beard, and the rest of us, I mean, I had a little dirty crustache in about that same time, but ain't no beard crawling its way across my face, no way, no how. But then, of course, as fate would have it, Devin, who could grow this, absolutely wonderful beard when he was, like 16 years old, I saw him on Facebook because of, social media. And, he's bald as a pencil eraser. It looks terrible. So, that's how it goes. And probably when he goes to the barber or whatever, he's very concerned about what they leave him with because there's not much going on up there anymore.
And he only had so many hair follicles and they all moved down. For my friends that are losing their hair, I have had this conversation with them, and I can't speak from my own personal experience, but as it seems to me, there is something, as you saw with our uncle Ken, that there is this certain amount of trying to pretend it's still there by pushing it forward and moving it over, that it smacks of desperation. Like, there's a dishonesty about it that even if you look fine, there's something about putting that much work in to put something there that isn't, that reflexively people are just like, I see it. I see what you're doing and I don't like it. And so in the conversation I've had with them, I'm like, all right, can you grow a beard? Yeah. Okay. Well, if you shaved it all off and got yourself a nice, doesn't need to be long, but a nice sturdy beard, and yeah, do you have to adopt a new look for that? But that shit is hard as fuck, dude. The shaved head with a manly fucking bottom right there, dude. Dude, that is a fucking look. I got a buddy out here. He's Italian, blue eyes, losing it on top, but a beard of a Gaston-like superhero. And he's very friendly, and so he feels the shaved head and the thick face hair isn't the look for him. But I'm like, dude, you do that, it will change your fucking life. And he's like, I don't know. But yeah, that's a look, dude. Shave it all off. Get rid of it. Get it out of the way.
I agree with that. And what we kind of hit on is that the effort that we make to kind of preserve whatever is left of our youth, it comes across as so garbage, and that you should just kind of be yourself and be old. The most extreme example of that was, the former president's former attorney, former mayor Rudy Giuliani at the Four Seasons landscaping when he showed up, and he must have just come, fresh from a dye job and out in the sun, and it was pouring out of his head like that brown liquid of Zorg in The Fifth Element. It was the worst thing we've ever seen.
That dude fucking was oily with it, man. That was shameful. And when you're in a position of authority and power, and your pretendo youth is dripping down the sides of your face, that might be it for you. You're done. We presumed, but that was terrifying, and you're done. Sorry about your oils.
I hate politics. We both know this. It's just so everybody takes up this side. And I'm more curious to see Trump go to jail, not because I hate him, because he reminds me so much of other business owners that I've known. I'm like, he's not a politician even. He's just like a full of shit business owner. I've known a bunch of them like that. And as a business owner, that's like a measure of competency to be full of shit all the time.
Sure.
And for whatever reason, he got it in his head he should have been a politician. I was like, well, somebody should have talked him out of that. But I know people like that, and it's hard to talk him in or out of anything. But not because I hate him, more so just because I'm curious to see what he looks like without the spray tan and elaborate updo. Put him in jail just for like 9 months. Not even because he's done anything wrong, just because I'm curious and I want to know what he looks like outside of his situation.
Yeah, I've thought of that too. And yeah, I mean, I don't know if they can put someone in prison for the curiosity of a random societal member. I mean, it would set a precedent. It would set a precedent that we have not yet seen. I don't foresee anything like that happen, but it would be fascinating to see what's underneath all of that effort. Where he doesn't get to stack the hair over and all that. And it would be fascinating to see. I think the implication, like everybody who's in that position of being in politics and making money and all that, like they've done enough wrong shit to where the precedent that would set, like everybody's guilty of something worthy of prison. And so I don't know that I necessarily want to see that happen, because everyone would go to prison, and then what would be like, then the Rock would become the president. And I'm like, I didn't think I could be more disappointed before, but now I don't know what to think.
Yeah, I've heard that, and I've heard him say that people have actually asked him to be the president. I was like, okay, so we in the U.S., it's not quite bad enough yet. We have to go full caricature, full idiocracy, whereby we've, this like large, it's this big man society where the largest man who's like the most robust looking is somehow the president. I don't know why.
Yeah. I mean, it's going to be taken to whatever end that it's going to right now. But you gotta admit, Joe Biden sure does have some pep in his step. He's electrifying.
So that's the opposite side of the coin. And like in Indiana Jones Part 3, where the Walter Donovan drinks the wrong, and the whole like life force is sucked from him, and he's various stages. I mean, this is like at least in the late 80s, this is top shelf visual effects, whereby it was pretty traumatizing too. And
it fucked my head up.
So that for like near the end, before it goes to like that leathery corpuscle kind of a thing, that's kind of where Joe Biden is on the how decrepit am I looking? And it's fucked up, but I think that's a big reason why people don't like him, because he's just like any other politician. Sometimes he makes sense, sometimes he's an idiot, but boy, does he look like later stage wrong grail Walter Donovan.
Oh my God. Yeah. Right before he explodes into a powder. That's what we got. And they're like, you know what, this guy, you know what he should be in charge of? Everything. That's what I think this man should do. Like, he's the guy you would help him with his soup at the dinner table. And we're like, you know what, this guy runs stuff. And I'm going to be honest, he's my hero.
So that's another reason why I'm kind of I'm out right now in terms of politics. I don't even live in the U.S. I'm probably not going to vote. But like, you expect me to get excited about either one of these people? So first of all, on the right, they're all a bunch of like cartoon villains, and not one of them can hold the candle to Trump. You got the guy in Florida walking around on high heels. He's like a baseball player. If I were Trump, I would have just said, if he were really a threat, I'd just call him minor league. I'd just call you minor league every time, and that's your new nickname, and that's it. It's over. And then that was the best of them. Oh my God. So there's nothing. And then on the left, you got like the lady who's like kind of a former cop who a lot of my like criminal friends are like, she put a lot of people in jail for no reason. I was like, what are you going to do? It's just hard to get excited about it. And here's the real problem. These fucking animals, these idiots, these cartoon villains are on television constantly. And, when we were in Pasadena recently doing family things, you weren't there for very long, but I had to stick around. I was waiting for Amazon deliveries. Our dad and stepmom watched political television all day long. And I'm like, these people are not our family members. They're actually okay. But the politician, they're just it's so repetitive. It's so stupid. I was like, if I cared, watching this all the time would repulse me to the point where I was like, whatever they're saying, I want to do the opposite. Fuck them.
Yeah, I can't watch a moment of it. So to imagine what somebody's brain is like that has been steeped in it for years on end, following it like it is any version of the truth, it is a little disheartening. A little mortifying to imagine the amount of time that people are being steeped in nonsense.
I can tell you how much time it is. Every moment that the TV is running, because they're both retired, every moment that the TV is running that is not a sports, right? And so they like sports that normal people like. They're normal humans. Our family are normal humans.
Yeah.
And they'll watch basketball because dad likes the Lakers, and they'll watch football because that's like America's sport, and they have like color commentary on like, you know, Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift and things like that. It's a little mundane, I know, but I'm like, okay, it's fine, sports is normal. But then when the sports aren't on, then they go right to the political television, and I'm just like, is there anything else on? Or you know what? Don't even listen to me, because everyone's going to be offended when I speak. I'm going to be out of earshot, and you guys do whatever you want. And when this isn't on, let me know, and we'll all hang out together as a family. It'll be great.
Yeah, it has been enough time that I don't have any sort of TV watching in my life that I don't really see the merit. I'm going to be honest. I don't see the merit in it. I've removed myself from the system, man. I don't even get it, man. I don't know. There's enough going on in life for those who are building something, but not for those who are, it's done. It's all been built. And then it's like, I don't know, what's there to do? Watch TV item and watch sportsing people and put our faith on the sportsing squads that change all the time. I don't know.
Okay, so what kills me is that I have a hard time. You know me, I can't, if I see something that doesn't like pass muster, I'm gonna say something. I'm a fucking asshole. It's just my style. Okay, so like the TV show itself, if you believe what the people are saying, then maybe for a brief while you can go along with it. But then the commercials kick on, and it's like the most specific kind of pharmaceutical product that you've ever had. It's like, have you ever had indigestion on a Tuesday in the late afternoon? We have the exact product that will cure your Tuesday afternoon indigestion. Have you ever stubbed your 8th toe on every other Friday? We have the cure. It'll resolve all of your 8th toe stub problems. And some of the side effects may include dementia, death, or becoming the other sex or whatever. I'm like, Jesus Christ, not only have I not had that problem, but the side effects alone are enough to get me to change the channel. But no, these are the companies that have a vested financial interest in the shows that we're watching staying on television, just so you can like have the fucking ad in there. Oh my God.
Yeah, I mean, I YouTube, Spotify, I mean, it's been at least 6 years that I've had the premium version of that, just because, especially like, let's say it's music, let's say it's something you're watching on YouTube, the energy of these commercials are so coarse and just so obtuse that to go from something that you're interested in to that fucking, do you want to come down to something or other and have yourself a something or other? And I'm just like, this is insufferable. But then there was a catalyst that changed everything. So I have ushered a lot of people through their very first DMT experience. One time I tried to space out that, this was before I had YouTube Premium, and we were listening to a very specific thing that I put on to gently have some sort of a tether to the earth while you go to outer space, and not the first realm of outer space, but the farthest you could ever be. Sometimes you need a tether, and that tether is some sounds that keep you on this planet a little bit. And I could see on the little YouTube slider where the commercial was going to come in, and I'm like, oh man, this person has been out for a long time. And while they're just coming back to reality, it jumps into, do you need to buy yourself a car? Sell yourself a car. Do you know anything? And I'm like, oh my God, I might have just scrambled this person's brain forever. And that was the last time that I ever didn't have a premium version of something that I like to watch or listen to, because while someone is in that coming back to reality state from the DMT realm, and you give them commercial energy, they just might die. They just might die. And so that was the end of that.
So good. Bless your heart for having the concern as like a psychedelic babysitter for handling that the correct way.
Yeah, I mean, as casual as that role has become in today's culture, much less Austin culture, it is a very important role for people while you have their consciousness in the palm of your hands. To take that role seriously is pretty important. I don't want to be responsible for anybody like their brain falls off the axis and now it's Livos over here in schizophrenia land, but all they know is like my name and bad, and they just say that forever for the next 60 years. And I'm like, boy, yeah, I did that to them. Great.
What was that Eric Andre show where he's talking about giving acid to the retarded girl and jumping around her screaming nightmare, 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 and it cured her retardation? It
was exactly that. We had a retarded girl in the neighborhood, and it was when he had Wiz Khalifa on, and so he's over there high and super chill. And he said, yeah, we had this retarded girl in our neighborhood, and one time we gave her a bunch of acid and went nightmare, nightmare, nightmare. But then Wiz Khalifa's like, I can't even deal with this. But then Eric Andre pulls it together and he's like, and we cured her retardation.
Okay, so here's where it gets interesting. I happen to think, even though Eric Andre by now he's a little dated, and like he had a show that was great for a while, and it kind of jumped the shark a little bit. They did a movie with the gags that kind of was not great. Okay, did you watch the movie with the gags?
I don't know that I made it through the whole thing. It was just, it's too much.
Okay, I agree with you. So his moment is done. And his show, which, you know, what he used to joke, he's like, it's on like half a network, you know what I mean? It wasn't the greatest executed thing on planet Earth, but for a while it really made sense. And I think it was like 2012 or something that it started. Does that sound right?
Uh-huh.
Okay, and so I kind of think that like at a certain point in time, reality and like media kind of diverged. One didn't really correlate to the other.
Yeah.
And so the only thing that made sense was like comedy, and this is why we're doing comedy, because it tends to be this bastion of truth, and this like crazy surrealist thing. And like Tim and Eric Awesome Show was kind of a part of that, and Eric Andre, and there were like a few other comedy bits here and there that were kind of that hit that vein. Because like the normal thing, it's like you get addicted to a drug and you want to write in your vein. And after a while, you're like, it's not doing it for me. I gotta go harder. I gotta go meaner. I gotta go spicier. And the only way to get anything that felt real was to kind of be a little bit insane.
Yeah, I like it when people pop out of the comedy sphere in a way that you never knew funny could be like that. And most recently, one of the most circulating bits right now is going through the drive-thru, paying for the person behind you and ordering 55 burgers and 55. I'm blanking on his name, but that guy came out of nowhere with a comedy that is at times a bit much, but like it's strange how the very direction of the way comedy is going, somebody will pop up out of nowhere and then it'll split off and bifurcate into a particular direction that nobody had considered.
Is that Tim Robinson?
Yeah.
Okay, good. I forgot his name too, but obviously that does. And this is kind of why I like TikTok, is because TikTok, somebody will throw up a clip and the clip will kind of make it into your For You.
Yeah.
TikTok is it harvests so much data. I'm like, fuck you for giving me exactly what I wanted.
Yeah.
What I wanted.
Yeah.
That's literally how I discovered the series Fargo, which has been on for 10 years. But because I was under a rock and had this shitty dismissive attitude about the remake of a Coen Brothers thing, Fargo is actually great. That guy too is comic gold.
I don't know this to be true, but this is what I heard about that guy, that he had auditioned for Saturday Night Live and is just like, the energy with which you do all this, it's a bit much. And so then he went off and did his own thing. And like half the people in my life, I couldn't even imagine them making it through 5 minutes of watching that guy do anything. But for the other half, it's like the best thing that they've ever seen. And, you know, I'm a fan.
I think that's the nature of comedy, though. We were talking about this before about how, you know, Sacha Baron Cohen, when he first jumped on the scene, there's like, if you go all the way back, it kind of started with Andy Kaufman, the Tony thing he used to do, and obviously it's before either one of us were born, but like there's a straight line between Andy Kaufman then to Sacha Baron Cohen and then like other people like that. And you know, we need to kind of have somebody come along and kind of scare us a little bit. There was a guy, you probably even remember him, who got a tattoo. Do you remember Blair Hansen? Blair
Hansen does ring a bell.
Okay, so he was cool when we were just kids, kind of like the guy with the tattoo or the beard.
Yeah.
Blair had a tattoo in 8th grade when he was 13.
Oh.
And so he was doing this thing called the Blair Show, where he would go into like a supermarket and throw a bucket of water on a total stranger, and he would run it on cable access, run it for free. And he used to get arrested, and then he later was kind of a paparazzi. He was always kind of this crazy rebel. Yeah. And at the time, fucking forget it, man. He's lucky he didn't get like murdered, beaten, or arrested. But then later, this is the same shit that Jackass was doing. I was like, what are you guys doing, Blair's material?
Yeah. That's pre-Jackass stuff for sure. Some people got an early jump on it, but some people popularized it for sure. All right, I got a comedy thing for you. I don't remember her name, even though I looked on it today. So when you enter the virtual sphere of, let's call it Instagram, that you're not in control of the way that you're received. And so there's this girl, and I've even seen her on some comedy podcasts because they're talking about how they can't even believe that this has happened. So she reads to me as a innocent Mormon girl who likes to tell a joke that is the most just basic, like when a 6-year-old tells a joke. Why did the dog do the thing? Because the dog is a dog. And you go, oh, she did it. So like understands the idea of setup, punchline, have a laugh, make the adults laugh. But this girl looks like she's maybe 23, 24, but has this blonde, kind of really teethy smile. Her name's like Evie something or other, but because I dated a Mormon girl, like I see the Mormanity in it. And so she tells this little joke, and then after the punchline hits, the camera stays on her for an extra 3 to 5 seconds, and she just kind of goes, like, and it's terrible. Like, it's the most cringeworthy shit ever. But as innocent as an adult human being, if somebody embodied the polar opposite of how you or I go through the world, it's like, oh darn and shucks, and like not in a cynical way, but like, you know, if you never grew into any sort of adulthood who saw the dark side. Scroll through her comments, and it has now picked up that she'll have tens of thousands of comments that say, oh, sweet joke, can you shit in my mouth? Oh, sweet joke, could you fart in my face and iron my mouth shut? Oh, sweet joke, could you deep fry my pancreas and feed me sugar? And every single one, like, her comments themselves have become a launching pad for the most terrible jokes you've ever seen, in contrast to the fact that she's like, I don't know, have you ever, like, what did the skull say as a joke? Oh, something humorous, you know, like the bone. And then, like, I'm just like, this is terrible. And you scroll to the comments, and it's the worst shit that you have ever seen in your whole entire life. And so I've been enjoying reading those comments lately.
Okay, so that you're hitting on the exact point, that comedy is not just what she says, because what you call that is twee, Twee. That's twee style, where it's so precious, and like you wouldn't, you know, hurt a fly, and you know, everything's beautiful and lovely. There's music that's like that, and there's fashion styles that like that. There's, you know, obviously comedy that's like that. But you're hitting on the exact same thing we're talking about with the Sacha Baron Cohen, where the comedy is two-faced. It's what the person says, and it's also how people react to it. The people that, you know, are clamoring for the, you know, sew my pancreas shut and fart in my ear hole or whatever. That's half the joke.
Ooh, run to the comments with that one. You got a good one. I mean, and to the point where like 1 out of 20 comments is like, I don't understand why these comments are like this. This is insane. But 19 out of 20 are repeaters who have just gone there to spend however long it's been since the last post to think of the worst possible thing that they could say to a human being, to the point where she made a post about it. Like, is there any way that you could just not do all of these terrible things, that not say all these things? And then the comments will be like, oh, that was sweet. That was really heartfelt. Could you rip off all of my toes and eat them one by one in front of me while I slowly edge myself to the brink of orgasm?
That's pure gold. Okay, so let's get into this. This is, I don't even know what to call that kind of comedy. I guess it's like the comedy of the comments. Okay, so I've listened. This is, you know, when you have parents that are kind of uptight, you have to get your real gutsy, the way the world is sort of thing from a different source. And I was listening to Loveline, Adam Carolla, and Dr. Drew since I was like 14 years old. It was a great way. So, you know, they have call screeners, and they have people that wait for hours to talk to the doctor and to Adam. And before that was Ricky Rackman, right? All these people that are on since like the 90s. But there was a guy who, over the course of probably 20 years, managed to get on the phone talking to Drew, who's very, like, he's from Pasadena like us. He's very smart, and he wants to listen. He'll give it to you real, but he's also like, you know, he wants to be compassionate. And the guy would work himself into all the different facets of his relationship. And at the very end, he would say, and she had an asshole like a mason jar. They immediately cut her off, right? Or cut the guy off, and you know, but I was amazed by how many times that happened. So that was the earliest version of that I can remember. And then there was another one, and I'm sure you've seen this one before, where there's a newscaster. And
I knew you were going there with it.
Yes. Okay. Good. Okay. So
I have another one, but go on.
Okay. Good. So there's a newscaster, and they're like, you know, live on the scene. It's Action News 7. Blah blah blah. And somebody runs up, fuck her right in the pussy. So this has reached unbelievable heights, and it's definitely like a countercultural subversive thing where, like, there was a guy who drove by in a car and kind of screamed it, but you couldn't really hear it, and there was a woman just casually walking up the street, and the woman giving the newscast was interrupted by the woman who ran up to the microphone and said, and fuck her right in the pussy. It's to the point where we're like finishing each other's jokes in this insane surrealistic way. I guess we'll call that subversive comedy or whatever.
Yeah, so there was this one is less interesting than both of those, but it was a guy talking his way onto a public access channel, just like you had described. And in the end, would just, if I remember correctly, it was just fuck you. But yeah, to talk your way on with a little bit of credibility, like, I want to share my problem. And then let's say the guy's name was Tom. I don't remember what it was. And then he would just finish with like, yeah, and fuck you, Tom. Like, okay, there's that guy again. And the casualness with which he would just be like, well, I got again, time to move on. But yeah, that in and of itself became just gold.
I think the one you're talking about was on C-SPAN, which is like, that's what politics used to be. It used to be very boring. And it's like an inflatable woman would get thrown around at a game. And then once in a while, the guy would just come on with the fuck you. I think
this was total public access that smacked of maybe later 80s, but at the latest early 90s. But yeah, it was just him, a desk, poor audio and video quality, definitely public access vibes, and somebody waiting to get to that point where, oh, we're on? Ah, fuck you.
I wish there was somebody who would do that with us right now. I long for that. I wish that we were established enough to where somebody would clown us with hate. That sounds great.
You have to sneak it in now. So like the guy in the background of where they always shoot the NBA after commentary will have something written on the shirt underneath and lifted up. It's harder and harder to get through the gatekeepers of non-disgustingness. That you have to be a little bit more sneaky with it these days, for sure.
Okay, then let's finish with this one. Then the last one I remember. Do you remember who Billy Ripken was?
Billy, okay, the baseball player with the fuck you bat.
So this is one of the great, because we like all kids, we were way into baseball cards. So the 1988 Fleer baseball card had 3 different errors. One was they let it by. Somebody screwed up at Fleer and it said fuck face on the bottom.
Yeah, that's what it was.
Bat.
Yeah.
And then there was one that was covered over in white, and there was a rarer one that was covered over in black. And depending on the value of the card, it was they're worth hundreds of dollars. I don't know if they're worth anything now, but that was one of those early versions of subversive sneak it the fuck in there.
Fuckface has to be top dollar. Have you seen the Mark Jackson basketball card that has those murderous twins in the back? Those brothers that murdered their parents? I don't remember what was the early. Yeah. There's a picture of them that was very soon before they murdered them, where Mark Jackson is dropping a crossover and the Menendez brothers are sitting courtside and so that, while not an error card, I would think would be of very high value to have the Menendez brothers immortalized in posterity on a basketball card.
Okay, so it was an NBA hoops card from the 1990 to 1991 basketball.
Was it Mark Jackson?
It is Mark Jackson, who's on the Knicks. And did I see him in the background? They're on his right-hand side, on the card's left-hand side. And it looks like it's worth $11 now. But I would own it I would own it just to own it. I want those Menendez brothers. That's awesome.
All right. So on that note, for my JV basketball picture, any chance you remember Mike George and Matt George?
Of course. They're totally ridiculous. And unless they had kids and were like, laden with horrible things in life, I bet you they're still pretty funny.
Yeah. So Mike George and I launched into probably middle school to high school long tear of cynicism and just the stupidest, funniest shit that I could ever imagine. Even things like Limbless Coyote and all this stupid shit that we thought up in the back of the green Subaru on the way back from Not Scary Farm, like the craziest shit you could imagine. But I never had someone who was that relatable on the stupid shit, other than you, the stupid shit that we think of, because like I just thought I was an insane person, but here's someone else who finds all the same shit funny. And so for our JV basketball picture, it was a one knee up, hand on the knee sort of a picture, and for that picture we put all our fucking middle finger out like this in that same way for the picture, and that is the picture that made it into the yearbook. And I mean, I'm sure we had to run some lines, do some suicides, run an extra mile, but let's just say Coach Vaughn was, by then it was probably Coach Stewart, was none too impressed with our behavior. But yeah, we slip a little fuck off bat in our Billy Ripken picture.
So that's awesome. That's great. That's kind of what we're talking about here. I would love, I mean, I don't know if we're ever going to do guests on this like purported show that we have, but I would love to have both of them on it. They were hilarious and ridiculous.
Yeah, my sophomore year basketball picture for the yearbook will have a pronounced, and honestly, we may have roped a third person into it, and like Mike and I were the players on that team, and so I'm sure someone felt pressure to be like, oh, Mike and Noah are gonna do it, I'll probably get in trouble, but also, yeah, fuck you, I guess, or whatever, so I could be cool. And then they're running lines, shaking their heads saying, I fucking knew it.
I think that that's great, and that level of insanity is exactly what the world needs.
Yeah, you know, we're just doing our part.